Born on the 3rd of March in 1498, Giovanni was the illegitimate son of Lucrezia Borgia and the assassin Perotto Calderon. He was raised by Cesare Borgia before eventually escaping, and from there he joined up with the assassins and began his legendary life. With that said, today we'll be looking at the full life of Giovanni Borgia. Before I begin though, if you want to watch more Assassin's Creed content like this, then please subscribe to the channel and leave a like, as it does really help out. Anyway, let us begin. Giovanni was secretly born in Rome to Lucrezia Borgia, the illegitimate daughter of Pope Alexander VI, and her lover Perotto Calderon. Still, there were rumours that Perotto wasn't actually his father, and that Giovanni might have been the son of Lucrezia's own brother Cesare. When Giovanni was born, he had severe deformities and wasn't expected to live long. Desperate to save him, Perotto escaped from prison and fled to Agnadello. He knew the assassins there were protecting a piece of Eden called the Shroud, and he hoped it could heal his son. After fighting his way through both assassins and Borgia soldiers, Perotto reached the Shroud and begged it to save Giovanni. It finally did, but the healing left the child mentally changed forever. Because Perotto had broken all 3 tenets of the creed, his own brothers executed him, and Giovanni was then taken in by Cesare Borgia, who raised him as his own son. As he grew up, Giovanni kept experiencing hallucinations of Consus, a legendary Isu scientist and one of the creators of the Pieces of Eden. Consus would talk to him in his mind, offering advice and guidance. Once, he even helped Giovanni read a letter, even though the boy hadn't learned how to read yet. Giovanni's grandfather, Rodrigo Borgia, was curious about Consus and often questioned if he could speak with him too, but Giovanni would just reply that Consus wasn't there, saying that he doesn't play when Nonno is around. Under Cesare and his bodyguard Micheletto Corella, Giovanni was taught to be ruthless and violent. Though he resisted their lessons, he grew up fearing and resenting them. When Cesare was away, Giovanni spent time with his aunt Lucrezia, who loved their moments together but was heartbroken to see her son growing up in such a brutal world. Sometimes Giovanni's grandfather let him play with the Apple of Eden and took notes as he noticed something strange. Giovanni could actually make his thoughts come to life using the apple's power. With just his will, he once created the image of an eagle out of thin air. When Giovanni was 5 years old, he used that ability to protect himself. Micheletto had taken him out for one of his lessons, which ended with Micheletto killing an old man just to show Giovanni how cruel the world could be. Terrified by this, Giovanni secretly used the apple, which he had stolen from his grandfather, to create an illusion of Cesare to scare Micheletto off. But when Cesare found out what happened, Giovanni was punished for it. Giovanni accidentally used the apple's power again when he caught Fiora Cavazza sneaking into the house to steal it for the assassins. Thinking she was just playing, Giovanni grabbed the apple and ran off laughing, telling her to chase him. When Fiora tried to stop him before he could alert the guards, she ended up frozen in place by the apple's power. Cesare was woken by the noise and found her, then captured her. When Giovanni nervously questioned what he was going to do to her, Cesare just sent him away, saying he was going to hurt her. By 1503, 5-year-old Giovanni had decided he'd had enough of living in fear and wanted to escape his old life. One day he got a message delivered by a courier pigeon from someone he didn't know, which gave him the push he needed to act. Careful not to be seen, he went to the meeting spot by a fountain, and following the instructions, he used his other eyes, what we know as eagle vision, to spot the person he was supposed to meet. He followed the figure across the rooftops until he ended up in an alley, where 2 thieves stopped him and tried to rob him. Before they could hurt him though, the stranger jumped down from above and killed both men with hidden blades. The man introduced himself as Francesco Vecellio, who, as it turned out, had once been Perotto's apprentice. Giovanni gladly accepted Francesco's offer to take him to live with his brothers, and from that point on, he was taken in to be trained as an assassin. By 1515, Giovanni, now confident and a bit full of himself, was training under Ezio Auditore, along with another apprentice, the lively and charming Hiram Stoddard. Giovanni thought his unique abilities made him special among the assassins, so it frustrated him that Hiram always seemed to outshine him, both in Ezio's eyes and in the affection of Elena, a young woman living in Ezio's household. Their rivalry kept growing, with Giovanni often losing his temper out of jealousy, while Ezio tried to teach him patience and humility. Things came to a head during a mission led by Hiram to recover an Apple of Eden from the Templar dei Petrucci in Florence. Even with Michelangelo's help, they failed to retrieve the artifact. A few days later, Giovanni spitefully told Elena, who came to comfort Hiram, that Hiram had cheated on her with a tavern girl. The lie sparked a fight between the 2 apprentices. During the fight, Hiram struck Giovanni in the head, which caused Giovanni to briefly be possessed again by Consus before passing out. Panicking, Elena tried to run but fell from the tavern roof to her death. Giovanni never learned what really happened, but Hiram blamed him completely and grew to hate him. A year later, Hiram had turned darker, abandoning the creed and becoming obsessed with finding the apple, convinced it could help him reunite with Elena. In Greece, he attacked an assassin hideout where the artifact was being kept, only to be ambushed by Giovanni. The two fought for the apple, and during their duel, Giovanni, now more humble, begged Hiram to forgive him and come back to the Brotherhood. Hiram refused. In the end, Giovanni defeated him, but chose to spare his life, taking the apple with him as he walked away. In 1519, Giovanni got a spot aboard Hernan Cortez's ship heading to the New World. While he pretended to be a chronicler and astrologer, his real mission from the Brotherhood was to track down and recover a piece of Eden hidden in the Aztec city of Tenochtitlan, which I'm pretty sure that I butchered that pronunciation, so I do apologise. Anyway, after studying several idols and artifacts, Giovanni started to feel a familiar energy, the same hum he remembered from the Apple of Eden. He traced it to a crystal skull owned by a Aztec priest who used it during human sacrifices. When the Spaniards reacted in horror to one of the rituals, Giovanni took advantage of the chaos, killed the priest and stole the relic. When Giovanni returned to Europe, he brought the crystal skull to his friend and ally Bombastus in 1527, hoping to figure out what it was for. Bombastus was confident they could uncover its secrets using a mysterious text called the Book of Abraham, a pair of journals by Nicholas Flamel that contained the teachings of Abraham of Würzburg. The book looked plain with a silver cover and seemingly blank pages, but anyone who read it would have their mind filled with strange new ideas. Even after extensive study, the two couldn't figure out how to activate the skull. Over time, other members of the Brotherhood started to doubt Giovanni's abilities and dismissed the artifacts as nothing more than a fancy trinket. Still, Giovanni refused to give up. For nearly 20 years he continued studying the skull, and in 1542 he finally got a breakthrough. One night he noticed the skull glowing faintly. When he picked it up and shook it, he began hearing words in an unknown language and saw visions of a man dressed in traditional Chinese clothing. Giovanni couldn't understand the words, but he sensed the man's purpose and rushed to inform the Brotherhood. He confronted Bombastus for help, but the scholar told him he could no longer assist, as the book, he said, was incomplete and held no more answers. Determined to find the missing half of the book, Giovanni began researching with the help of Maria Amiel, one of Bombastus's apprentices. Together they learned that the tome was called Divine Science and had been written by the French alchemist Nicholas Flamel. Their search led them to Paris, where Giovanni got permission to study in the Royal Library. Eventually, they traced a related grimoire to Penel Flamel's nephew, only to discover it was just a translation. Still, the book contained Pythagorean symbols and Hermetic notes that reminded Giovanni of an ancient temple his mentor Ezio had discovered back in 1506, when he saved Leonardo da Vinci from the cult of Hermes. On their way back to Basel, Giovanni insisted they take a detour through Troyes, but didn't tell Maria why. While Maria stopped near a cloth shop by the cathedral, Giovanni suddenly disappeared. Moments later, a man wearing a tunic with a red cross approached her and started asking strange questions. Before she could respond, Giovanni appeared behind him and killed him with his hidden blade. At first, Giovanni accused Maria of working with the Viper, the Templar messenger he had just slain. When she started to cry, he immediately realised he'd been wrong. After a brief, tense moment, they kissed and finally admitted how they truly felt about each other. Soon after, the two refocused on getting out of the city, and after finding a report describing them, Giovanni knew the Templars were on their trail. In the woods nearby, they were ambushed by the Templars, but Giovanni managed to fight them off. After that, they travelled cautiously and avoided more trouble. When they finally reached Basel, they discovered Bombastus had gone mad. He was burning books and accusing doctors of heresy. Giovanni had to restrain him, and afterward, he and Maria recovered the first half of the book from Bombastus's lab. Sometime later, Giovanni found a map leading to the old Pythagorean temple and asked Maria, now his wife, to come with him. He admitted that Ezio and Leonardo da Vinci had once explored the site, but found nothing useful. Yet he was convinced something still remained hidden there. Trusting him, Maria agreed, and together they descended into the catacombs. Inside, Giovanni unlocked the path by shifting bricks and lighting an urn that sent a trail of fire through the chamber. When they reached the final room, strange symbols, numbers, and glowing patterns appeared all around them. Suddenly, Giovanni collapsed. When he woke up, his face had changed and he was speaking in a voice that wasn't his own. He introduced himself as Consus the erudite god, an ancient presence now speaking through him. Unfortunately, from my research, this is the last thing I could find about Giovanni's life, other than he died around 1548 at the age of about 50 in the Republic of Genoa. So perhaps he lived the rest of his days with his wife Maria in some relative peace, but I'm not entirely sure. Honestly, his story was very interesting, and for a character who was involved in smaller projects, he had a very eventful life. Thank you so much for watching, have a great day, and I hope to see you in the next video.